It is. It is recorded.
Okay, now it seems to be working. So tell me about it.
Well, I'm studying for this new job, and I want to be the best. I'm going to have like I'm going to have a little exam on Tuesday, and I just want to know my shit. And
Trust me, you know that.
Yeah, I knew that, but the problem was yesterday that I got wrapped up in like that I was not efficient with studying, and I felt like there was a fear passing through me that I actually don't know how to study. I'm wasting my time. I'm not gonna be able to know everything. I am a failure. I mean, all that negative stuff, like that how I lived my life for 35 years. Like it was just really loud for like for a little time. Like the perfectionism, the judgment, the criticism, the condemnation. And I just, once I wrapped up in it, it was just keep going and going. And I mean, we talked about this before. I can't, I can't think my way out from there. I have to have a higher help. And, I was boiling on it. I was like holding on to it like a hot stone, and I couldn't drop it for a little bit. And then end of the day, I dropped it. But I am getting to know and getting better about it, how to drop it. And I just learning how to be more quicker about it, how to drop it.
Well, part of the important part, in my experience, is just having it when you have it. Not trying to figure out how quickly you can get rid of it, but to have it. Because the experience that's uncomfortable, that's saying all those things to you about all of your shortcomings and all of your defects and all of your fears about those things, is actually introducing itself to you in a way that your brain is capable of receiving and having and understanding, because that relationship has been going on while you've been trying to pretend it wasn't, or you've been numb to it in some way by ignoring it. The relationship has always been there. Your awareness of it has been dim. So when you're feeling it, it's actually an indication of your interest in having it.
But
follow me?
I do. I absolutely do follow. But how is that? So, like, what can I do about it? I mean, like, I don't want to. Yeah.
Start considering that you're doing everything about it to begin with. So if you're asking what to do about it because you don't think you're doing what you're doing to have it, that would put you at odds with what's happening and almost make it impossible for you to come to terms with it. So if you can have something, Paul, you now have something you cannot have if you choose not to have it. But if you think you don't have the thing you think, what are the chances you're going to think you can get rid of it? You don't even think you have it. Why would you think you could get rid of it?
Well, so that means I'm doing my best.
Well, you're doing what you're doing, and based on the fact that you can't ever redo it, that's as good as it's going to be or as bad as it's going to be. That's all irrelevant. You're just doing what you're doing. I'm starting to notice that there are things about it that aren't always easy for you to experience. And so you end up, my sense is it isn't the mentally obsessive thinking that we're struggling with. It's the attention we're paying to it that keeps it going as though it's there and real. We're triggering the brain. We're giving the brain something it can't process. So it just goes around and around and around like a computer when it gets a corrupted file in it. You know how the wheel spins on the screen and just goes around and around? That's what we're asking the brain to do, and then denying that we want the brain to do it. Because we're not noticing, we're the ones causing it. You're paying attention to fix the stuff you don't like, rather than notice. Why would you fix it if you're the one creating it?
So how do you fix it? What you do about it?
I know that it's not broken. I know that it's only broken by my continuing to pretend I can fix it. There's nothing to fix. It's all just imagination that I'm struggling with, because the ideas I'm struggling with have no basis in reality. So the more I make believe there's something to fix, the more I am saying I think they're real.
So I understand
You what?
I understand that the problem is like the identification. Once I believe in, like, you know, that's when the real problem starts, because the thought I have, that's one thing, and like, and now I really sense it when I'm really like in a natural state, when I'm like kind of like when I'm just okay, and now I sense it when I'm not, right away, when it's like, oh my God, what's going on? And yeah, so I might.
Well, you're even asking what's going on, while you really know what's going on.
I do.
You're exactly. But you can see how the habitual addiction has us constantly triggering these stories that we repeat, and the narrative of those stories tells us there's nothing we can do about what's happening, as though we're not the ones doing it. That's the insanity of it all. So as you just start to notice that what's happening is happening and it's uncomfortable, what does the book say? 12 and 12 says, whenever we are disturbed, something is wrong with us.
Yeah.
The wrong isn't the thought I'm having. It's not the collection of everything that may be wrong in my system that I think is right, which has been largely assimilated through history and ideas and ideals that people have passed down that I don't even think about, but they're certainly causing some disruption in my experience. But the real disruption, that may be, those thoughts may not be as active as the one I'm dealing with now. But when I think I don't have anything to do with it, I also think I don't have anything to do with all the rest of those things that seem more subtle right now. Those thoughts I don't even think I'm having, for instance, which I think actually have the greater impact on us, because we don't think we have anything to do with those, because we don't think about them at all, rather than the thoughts we can identify.
Well, so I see that might be like I have a misalignment how to handle this.
Yeah. The misalignment, Paul, is thinking you shouldn't be having the thought while you're having. Think about that. You're having a thought and thinking you shouldn't be having the thought. Which comes first?
Well, I know I'm not responsible. I know I'm not responsible for the thoughts. Like my responsibility is what happens after. I see that clearly. So I know when.
I would go further and say, if you didn't exist, nothing would exist. You're responsible for all of it. There may not be anything you can do about the initial thoughts, but it's what you do about them that you're struggling with.
Yeah.
So that really can't be true, that there's nothing you can do about those initial thoughts. However they come to be is irrelevant if they are. What's relevant is, what are we choosing to do? The conflict is not in what's happening naturally. It's in what we're doing about it that's unnatural and unhealthy and abnormal.
What? Yeah, like how I'm going to what action? Or like yes, like what I'm gonna do about it? That's the problem.
Right.
Because
it's the what. I think it's the what and the how.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do, how I'm thinking about it, what I'm thinking about it, how I'm thinking about what I'm thinking about it, what I'm thinking about how. Those are the options. Time and place is determined because where and when is now. And why, if we're constantly seeking answers to questions, but we don't even understand the question. And if the question is questionable and we keep seeking answers, it's like doing the exact same thing we're trying to do by figuring out why we should have or shouldn't have the thinking we're having while we have the thinking we're having. For me to think I shouldn't be having it while I have it is a major conflict. It's like thinking something is lost and being so convinced it's lost that I'm looking right at the thing I think is lost and not seeing it on my desk, which I've done enough times. I look right at my keys in the midst of other things and don't see them because I'm sure they're lost.
And then you find it?
Well, eventually I'll see them and say, what was I was looking right at them. But I began to realize that because, instinct and our survival mechanism is prone to helping us make decisions that are right. That's what survival depends on. Mostly right decisions. So if we're feeling threatened, it makes a lot of sense that we might try to be right about what's happening. So if I think a wrong thought and feel desperate to find my keys because I've got an appointment, I've got to meet somebody, I've got all these other things that are going into that moment where I thought they'd be somewhere and I could get out of the house and get to where I'm going, there's a little desperation in that. And it's natural in one respect to want to be right about it, but when it's not right, it's unnatural. It starts to make it right, to think what we're thinking is right, that the keys are lost, rather than what I learned to do is say, I know they're somewhere, and I had them last, so I must know where they are, and I'm just not thinking about it. Either the desperation has given me an impression that it's too much to find or impossible to find. And generally speaking, they as soon as I start to realize that and live with it, the thought comes, and I know exactly where they're.
Yeah, it happened to me. The problem was like the thought didn't come at all.
Well, it takes practice, Paul. When we're so used to doing something, there's a conditioning that's been, especially in addiction. It's like somebody who's spending their first day not drinking alcohol after having drank for 20 years. Or you stop smoking cigarettes, even more so. I remember when I stopped, I smoked cigarettes for a short period of time, but when I stopped, every day around the time I used to smoke, I would get this idea that I'm missing something. I'm forgetting to do something right now. Yeah. This strange sense that there's something I need to do, and no matter what I did, that same feeling came up, that same thought.
Yeah.
So you're learning.
I am, actually, but yes. And I'm enjoying, I'm actually, like when I sit down at night and I was able to see that what happened and what I did and what I continued and how I know that I live my life related to these behaviors, actions, and thoughts for 32 years. So it's not going to be an overnight matter, but I see more and more, which is just, it's a really exciting journey, because now I'm really excited.
Keep something in mind, though, in relation to that, because the excitement is interesting, but it can also be some of the old hopeful, wishful thinking that you think you finally mastered by seeing this, and you're going to put it back to work. If you follow me.
Yeah.
When you say it's not an overnight matter, begin to notice that the issue that we're talking about that's permanent, that we know that's the basis of nature, that's the absolute state of being, that is the basis of all reality, hasn't changed. It doesn't have to change overnight. It hasn't changed at all the whole time. Just to see and isolate the thing that's been changing and the time that it's been taking to come to terms with it is really equal to the denial we have about what we're still doing. That's why it's postponed. If the nature of our nature is natural and it's happening now, there's nothing incomplete about it. What's incomplete is my thinking about it, and also that part of me, like I mentioned earlier, that I don't think I'm thinking, that seeming subconscious that we call it, while in fact we know what it is because it's a primary motivator for the actions we take, that we also often slap our head and say, what the hell was I thinking? Literally, because we don't think we're thinking that at all. If we can think we're not thinking what we're thinking or shouldn't be thinking what we're thinking, we can be pretty clever in coming up with excuses and justifications and rationalizations for what we're doing, rather than face that we're doing what it is that we're trying to figure out. Take the full responsibility, because you've already got it. Think in those terms, and then you have it, and now you have something you could. In choice, it's the same way. People say, I don't have any other choice. The whole basis of choice is the opportunity not to choose. So even if you don't like any of the choices you have, there's no reason you have to make a choice. None. So when you come to terms with that, it's like the first step in AA. The idea that I can't drink isn't that I can't drink. I can drink. I'm absolutely free to drink. I proved it 1,000 times. What I'm not free to do is trigger the allergy once I take that drink. So if I know I'm free, when I came to terms with the fact that I knew I was free to drink, I began to see it clearly and realize it made no sense to do that. The same with marijuana, which was an even bigger transition for me.
But is the same with thinking too?
It's the exact same thing, because all of those things we're talking about are just symptoms. They're effects of the cause of the thinking we're doing. So if I notice that I have what I have and that what's happening is happening, let me also remind you that this is always going to be the case. It's not going to change. So if we can think in absolute terms about relative things, we have a very stable basis to deal with things that aren't always predictable or don't seem like they're predictable, and we don't always know where they're going. Because the fact is, we're starting to enter the world where everything's new all the time, rather than the same old thing that we've been managing and trying to keep still all the time, trying to fix all the time, trying to manage all the time, when doing all those things only manages the insanity. And our nature doesn't change when that's happening. We just assume what we call our nature to be this new thing, because we just haven't come to terms with the fact that we're embarrassed to admit that we've been acting as though reality is based in fantasy.
But hold on. You said something which really shocked me. That did you say I never gonna be cured of this?
Right.
I think that's where I hold my misalignment is. I think that's what I thought.
Right. Because this isn't a symptom.
Okay.
You even understand, though, Paul, that one of your symptoms is food, right?
It is.
Okay, so food, nobody's asking you to never eat again, right?
Well, just eat right.
Exactly. So that will never go away, just like the thinking will never go away. There are some things that you need complete abstinence from, and those things are things that trigger the allergy. But the mental allergy never goes away, because it's always susceptible to insane ideas and not being able to. My physical reality, my brain and my body that are designed to express reality, don't understand insanity at all. So they break down trying to process it.
So that's when recovery comes in.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and keep in mind the word recovery. You're taking back something you've always had. And I would say you've never given it away, but you just thought you did. Because of the thinking you were doing, it seemed to be missing, because the thinking you were doing was missing the component called substance.
So, wow. I'm having a lot of breakthroughs in this conversation. So, does that mean that, when it says, the book says, the problem, that the main problem is centered in my mind rather than my body, that means
right.
This is all it's about.
Yes.
Wow. Because it's not just drugs and alcohol. I can see that clearly. And now it's not just food. I can see that clearly too. Yeah.
But here's the other side of it, though, Paul. when we start thinking this insane way, and this is induced insanity we're talking about, it's not a medical diagnosis of schizophrenia or any of that kind of stuff. But I do happen to think that if we've been thinking this way for so long, it's had a collective aggregate effect on our psyche and on the psyche of all the DNA that's been developed. So there's probably some remnants that are traceable back to this form of thinking as having been unusable and abnormal and unusual and unhealthy. But we're not going to go there. We're going to deal with you right now. We're going to deal with this together. The chemical potential, when I make believe the best thing I can do is the worst thing I can do, which is basically the addictive thought, the right thing for me to do, the only thing for me to do is the thing that's killing me effectively, it puts my body into an emergency mode. And generally, whenever you've had an emergency, you know very quickly how to solve it. Real emergencies, right?
Yeah.
So this chronic emergency, as the body begin to develop chemicals, literally adrenaline, dopamine, serotonin, either use chemicals unnecessarily or stop making chemicals that are needed for actual emergencies. It starts to deplete and have an effect on our bodily system. So we're literally instead of ingesting chemicals, we're actually setting them off in our brain and controlling that. That's where the mental obsession creates all this adrenaline and this wearing and tearing and the feeling worn out and exhausted and at odds with yourself and at odds with others, and the fight goes on and it's never enough, and it doesn't matter what you do, there seems to be more, and that all that dreadful thinking, all that misery that the big book even says, avoid the deliberate manufacture of misery, telling us that it's deliberate and manufactured. And Bill's telling us to avoid it because he knows that we can.
Yeah. I mean, I can see that clearly,
Uh-oh.
I mean, it says in the big book, as we, if I'm really learn to really get into practice what it says on Awakening, that it says as we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful. So anytime when the insanity happens, I get agitated or doubtful.
Right.
All the time.
Right.
Many times. Many times.
You know why you feel doubt? Because the thoughts you're having are doubtful.
Yeah.
And they're uncertain. And yet, let me point out, because the absolute is revealed in everything, regardless of whether or not we think it's not, having doubt about a doubtful thought is guaranteed. Having uncertainty about an uncertain thought is guaranteed. That's an absolute reality. Because no matter how much we try to avoid it, the feedback we're getting is just like an allergy. We know the allergy is going to have us want more and more and more when we drink. But the mental allergy wants more and more and more because the substance of the thinking, it has no basis in reality. And the body's saying, what I really thrive off of and what would really help here is some thinking that has substance, some thinking worth thinking about, some nutritional thinking, some food for thought that's actually got nutrition attached to it. And if you think of all the compulsions, every one of the chemical compulsions is attached to a substance that's been reduced by humanity to an essence that's multiple times more concentrated than the natural substance. And so it also stripped of all the other ingredients that would give the body the ability to metabolize and deal with it. The sugar contents in alcohol is almost all sugar, if not all sugar. That is not how we're supposed to eat sugar. Sugar is supposed to come with fiber and other ingredients, tannins and all kinds of things. Put the brakes on the absorption rate. There's no brakes in alcohol. most of the high in alcohol is the infusion of sugar, which is why I used to like mixing it with straight Coca-Cola to get a little more sugar.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, you used to do.
Hmm? I just lost you.
Yeah, yeah. I just somehow I disconnected to the phone and went back to the car. Yeah, I was a big engineer about like what's the best combination. I love the topic.
Yeah.
How can I get a higher high? I wanna have a higher high without any any withdrawal or any like.
Okay. Well, think about what you're saying. We're asked to get a higher power. That's apparently higher.
That's the highest one.
Yeah, exactly. So if you want a higher power, think about real power. Think about reality. Think about truth. Think about life as the essence of all those things, not some bystander that seems to occasionally get some or has it taken from them. We're absolutely a part of it all. We've been that way the whole time. We've just been misreading the signs and then making believe misreading the signs is correct. The signs say stop, and we think it means floor it.
Well, so technically, like once it's happening, like I just gotta notice it. Like, wow, this is happening.
Well, just right now, Paul, rather than wait for that time, just start noticing that everything's always happening. Like now, it's always happening. It's always been happening, and everything that's happening connected to what's happening wherever you are, wherever I am, including you and I, including everyone listening, including everyone that exists. It's all happening simultaneously. So start living. If you stop waiting for the time it's bad and start working during the time it's good, you won't need desperation as your guide because you'll be proactively participating and starting to notice how things actually are. And when those other times come, you will laugh because they won't seem so huge and like the only time you need to do anything about it.
Mm.
You start doing it now, just like the book says. The book doesn't say wait around to grow. Wait till you feel wrong and bad and horrible and then start practicing. It says practice the principles in all of your affairs. Why? Because they're in all of your affairs. They're already there. We just aren't practicing them. We're practicing an unprincipled form of thinking in relation to what's going on.
Okay. Well, that makes absolute sense. I it's this whole thing is really interesting. Like, I think I'm making. I mean, I'm always making a lot of new discoveries when when we're having these conversations. I had, I see, I see what am I actually doing with myself, what the self, like, well, how can I say it correctly? I see what am I doing, but I think what action do I take or what reaction do I take? That's what I have to work on.
No, that's what you've been working on and why you keep maintaining it and why you keep thinking that more work about the insanity is going to work. What does the book say? Pause, restraint of pen and tongue. Pause when agitating. Stop. It doesn't say start the whole thing up again. It doesn't say spend some more time thinking about your thinking that's out of control. Just start to notice that you have the perfect capacity to think about it and say, it doesn't make any more sense to think more about that than it ever has. And give your thinking a break from making believe that it is the center of the universe and the source of your reality and the source of who you are, and that you'll die without it. The life you think you're living in that regard is never lived. It's just been a fantasy, an imagination, a caricature, literally a cartoon character, animated.
So I just have to practice.
You don't have to do anything. Don't have to do anything.
I have to practice stay in the present. That's all I need to do.
No, that's all. You're already in the present. You can't be out of the present. There's no practice involved in that at all.
I can think my way out from there.
Yeah. But think of the trauma of that, Paul. Think of the idea that we're always in the present naturally, and then thinking we're not in the present. What would that mean? That we have no place in all of this universe. We don't belong here. We don't fit, and we're never going to fit. If we can be out of the present, that means we have no place whatsoever in reality, because there is no time, there is no space that isn't present. There is nothing happening that isn't present. There is no past or future, but in brains, the same place where lies exist that don't exist in the universe, or don't exist universally. They only seem to exist in brains that can think about their thinking, which is a large advantage when it's used properly, and a major disadvantage and life-threatening death wish when it's used improperly and incorrectly.
Yeah.
So notice, when you think you have to do something, you're back into addictive thinking. Because if you have to do it, think of that word. You've now turned the word have, which means you've possessed something, you have something, into a demand. It's exactly what we do with wants. When I'm thinking obsessively, a want becomes a demand, a need, and now my life seems to depend on getting that thing. And all that means is that I've used the life-threatening situation I've constructed to justify doing the thing that I don't need at all. I just happen to want it.
Now it makes sense. Makes sense, actually.
So when you feel the desperation, it's coming from that same thinking. Just give it credit, and you will stop trying to take credit for things that aren't worth doing. You'll just start noticing, wow, this is, I will tell you that when I was writing about this and writing about the ego years back, and started to really get the fact that it was just wholly made up, and that we were talking about it as though it was real, and kept reinforcing it as though it was something to fix. And yet the more I tried to fix it, the more pages I had to write to try to do that. And it just hit me that the whole thing was make-believe. And it wasn't just me. In my experience, we were all seemingly perpetuating it, talking about it as though it's something to fix, and something I have to get better at doing, and something I need to let go of, and something. That's all just fantasy. But I had a panic attack. All of the fear that I had held in my system, or a lot of it, that I had held in my system, trying to go numb to, trying to deny, trying to act as though denial, like a psychic anesthesia, would solve the problem. Just like a painkiller. I was sober. And all of that fear that I'd been managing lit up. And it took hours of just breathing with it. And all I repeated was, I am as I am. I am as I am. I am as I am. And then we are as we are. And began to be more embracing and expansive in that consideration. And it slowly just faded. So it sounds like you're in the middle of a lot of stuff, and I'm going to let you go.
Yeah, what a great topic. I would like to continue this conversation.
We will. Paul, I think, to give you some credit that you may not think you have, none of the things you're becoming aware of would be possible without your involvement and your willingness to look honestly at what you're doing and start to admit it. My sense is, by admitting it more publicly, it becomes a little more obvious that it's not as big a thing as you thought it was when you spent time home alone trying to fix it by staying away from people.
Yeah, and exactly that's the time when I don't want to call, like, and I'm kind of wrapped up in this whole, I'm just draining myself down.
Yeah. Isn't it funny that embarrassment, you can have a life-threatening situation going on mentally, and embarrassment will keep you from doing anything about it.
Yeah.
Think of how that image of who people think we are is so critical, and it isn't. It doesn't matter what people think of us at all. It matters what we're thinking about our own experience. That's what matters most to us. I'm of no value to anyone else if all I'm doing is trying to replicate the same insanity that I've learned to begin to dissolve. Doesn't help.
Yeah,
so, well, you're doing that.
Yeah. No, it's exciting. I mean, not exciting, but it's it's an adventure, and it
certainly isn't depressing, and it isn't degenerative, and it isn't desperate. You can feel the difference.
And I'm able to not get out, but I don't know how to just able to not stopping it, but just be okay with it. I used to drain myself down and beat the shit out of myself. So I don't have to do that anymore, which is great. But anyway,
when you start realizing you've got no self to beat the shit out of, it won't make any sense to do it.
I am realizing.
Yeah, you're starting to see that, and as that goes away, it starts to become very easy to wander and wonder rather than wonder about wandering all the time.
Yeah,
and start wandering in that sort of openness.
I gotta jump.
See you.
Bye. Love you.
Love you, man.